Moroha is another virgin lonely loser, but suddenly, he got RIZZ God ability in pulling girls like drinking water. But once he got into this special academy, he clapped too many bitches and triggered something inside him. He joysticks breaks, sorry guys mean, unlocking a crazy strong side no one saw coming. A wild battle broke out between the sword-wielding saviors and a massive, reality-bending dragon. Things got intense fast. As the fight dragged on and people started getting hurt, Moroha thought about his friends and the stuff he cared about most. He snapped, swearing to take down anyone who messed with what mattered to him. Then, out of nowhere, he cast this insanely strong spell that caused a giant explosion and completely wiped out the dragon. About 6 months before the big fight, the school's principal gathered everyone and started explaining why they were chosen. She told the students they all had special powers because they carried memories from their past lives and could tap into something called Ancestral Arts. While she was giving this serious speech, Moroha dozed off midway and drifted into a dream. In it, he saw a red-haired girl from his past life, and just as they were about to kiss, he suddenly woke up, only to see that exact same girl standing in front of him, going to clap her. Without warning, she slammed her head into his, knocking him to the floor and taking a few chairs down with him. She said that was payback for falling asleep on the very first day and made it clear she wasn't a fan of lazy guys like him. As Moroha got a better look at her, he realized she looked exactly like the girl from his dream and ended up calling her Sasha. Hearing that, the girl got all excited and tackled him with a hug, calling him Froga and saying she'd missed him so much. Moroha, confused but thinking finally she is ready, but he told her she had the wrong guy. His name was Moroha, not Froga, but she insisted he was her older brother from a past life because he somehow remembered her old name, Sasha. He admitted he didn't recall much from his past life and that the name just randomly came to him. She joked about headbutting him again, but then a weird sound distracted them. They turned to see another girl collapsed on the floor. Moroha rushed to check if she was okay, but as soon as she opened her eyes, she looked straight at him and called him Shushora. Then, out of nowhere, she leaned in and kissed him. The red-haired girl instantly freaked out, yanked them apart, and threw shade by calling Shushora a homewrecker. But Shushora, still kinda out of it, just said she was half asleep and thought he was someone else. The redhead snapped back, asking if she made a habit of kissing random people every time she was half awake. But Shushora didn't seem fazed at all. The red-haired bitch, clearly upset, said Shushora had ruined her chance to kiss Moroha in this life. As Moroha tried to cool things down, Shushora looked at him and casually asked what he thought of her lips. Moroha got awkward real fast but told her straight up that she was acting way too flirty, especially since they barely even knew each other. While they kept going back and forth, the red-haired girl felt completely left out. She snapped, saying Moroha might not remember her past life, but he sure acted like a playboy now, and with tears in her eyes, this bitch runs off. Later on, in class, the teacher asked everyone to stand up and introduce themselves. The red-haired girl shot her hand up like she was dying to go first. She proudly introduced herself as Satsuki Ranjou and said she was aiming to become the second strongest savior in the whole academy. She also promised she'd do her best to be a solid leader for the rest of the students. But instead of cheering her on, the entire class got ticked off. They were fuming like she thought she was the main character and all of them losers. Satsuki looked super confused and said all she wanted was to be a good role model, especially for people like them, who, in her words, she is trying to say how to be motivated to accomplishing anything big. Moroha took one look at her and thought, yeah, this is totally mad and to fix this I have to give my joystick to her. Not wanting things to spiral into chaos, he stood up and asked the teacher to just skip the drama and start roll call already. The teacher agreed and read the first name on the list, Shizuno Urushibara, Aka, the same girl who kissed Moroha earlier. But when everyone looked over, she was completely knocked out, still fast asleep. While heading to their first class, Satsuki walked up to Moroha and casually asked if he wanted to hang out after school, clearly hinting she wants his joystick. Moroha, not wanting to deal with her because he knows how to handle these bitches, said he was planning to find a part-time job. But she quickly pointed out that school rules didn't allow part-time work. Later, the students gathered around their instructor at the arena. He started the lesson by explaining the two types of saviors, Shurin, who use light powers, and kuroma, who tap into dark energy. He told them they'd start by learning light techniques and showed them how it worked by summoning his armor-like suit, which amazed everyone. When they asked about it, he explained that it was his prana, basically, the energy source behind light skills. Since everyone had memories from a past life, he said they just had to pull that power out instinctively. Hyped up, the students all gave it a shot but quickly realized it wasn't that easy. Satsuki was the first to nail it with no problem. Moroha was still struggling to bring his out when Satsuki showed up and excitedly asked if he saw her performance. Before he could answer, they overheard a group of students joking around. One guy said he hoped a metaphysical monster would show up and cause chaos so they'd be sent out to stop it. Satsuki called them out, saying they were embarrassing as saviors. One of the guys, named Jen, snapped back, questioning who she thought she was. She clapped back, saying if they had working brains, they wouldn't ask dumb stuff like that. Things escalated fast, and soon they were trading insults. Jen suddenly got fired up, summoned his prana, and challenged her. The teacher tried to stop it, but Jen insisted it'd just be a training duel. He yanked on the tag around his neck, and it morphed into a double-bladed axe. Satsuki did the same, pulling out a sword. Moroha was stunned, and Shizuno explained that the tags transformed into weapons they used in their past lives by channeling prana into them. Moroha watched in awe but also started worrying for Satsuki. She kept attacking, but Jen easily dodged her strikes and kept mocking her for missing. She charged in again, and when he swung his axe, she ducked it just in time and went in for a hit, but Jen quickly disarmed her and called her weak. As she went to grab her sword, Jen slashed at her back with his axe. Luckily, it only tore her clothes. Satsuki dropped down, clearly embarrassed, as Jen laughed and mocked her. Moroha stepped in, became a gentleman and took off his jacket, and gently placed it over her back to cover her up. The teacher finally stepped in and told Jen to cut the taunting. Jen gave a half apology, but still called Satsuki weak for not being able to defend herself. That hit her hard. She stood up without saying a word and walked out of the stadium. Later, at a quiet cafe in town, Moroha found her looking completely down. He tried cheering her up, but none of his words really got through. So instead, he just listened. Satsuki eventually opened up. She talked about how her hometown was constantly attacked by Metaphysicals, so her family was always moving. That made it tough to form real friendships. But thanks to her past life memories and the dreams where she saw Fraga, she never truly felt alone. When she was tested and found to be a savior, it made her feel like she had a purpose because it meant there was a real chance she'd meet Fraga again. She admitted that saving the world or chasing justice wasn't what drove her. What really mattered was proving herself in front of him. But after losing that fight, she felt humiliated. With tears in her eyes, she asked Moroha to scold her like he used to in their past life. He said nothing. That's when Shizuno, who they hadn't even noticed was sitting beside them, calmly offered to do the scolding instead. Satsuki was stunned and immediately accused Moroha of inviting her, but he denied it. Shizuno didn't react at all, just sat there casually eating fries. When Moroha shifted to sit next to her, Satsuki snapped and told her to leave. Shizuno ignored her, walked right up to Moroha and pressed his face into her chest, then asked with a straight face if that made her seem like a shameless woman. He was too stunned to answer. Fuming, Satsuki threw out insult after insult, accusing Shizuno of using her oversized assets to seduce innocent boys. Shizuno hit back, saying flat-chested little girls like her had no right to talk.
Emotional damage!
Satsuki refused to back down, so Shizuno eventually let go of Moroha. But right after, Satsuki grabbed him and shoved his face into her plot armor, asking how he felt. Moroha said, like being dragged across tiny rocks. Give him another emotional damage. Satsuki burst into tears and ran off. As they watched her go, Moroha quietly thanked Shizuno for helping her feel better in her own weird way. That evening, back at the school arena, Moroha confronted Jen and demanded an apology. Jen laughed and said he'd only apologize if Moroha could land a single hit on him. As Moroha chose a weapon, Jen powered up, summoned his axe, and charged straight at him. Meanwhile, Satsuki had just stepped out of the shower when Shizuno suddenly burst into her room with urgent news. Moroha was in trouble. Without even taking a moment to throw on proper clothes, Satsuki bolted out of the room and rushed straight to the stadium. Back at the arena, things weren't looking good. Moroha was struggling hard against Jen, who was using a skill called Celerity, a move that let him create illusions of himself and attack from unexpected angles. Moroha tried to block the incoming hit with his sword, but Jen's strike came from behind, launching him across the floor. That was the moment Shizuno and Satsuki arrived at the scene. Jen spotted Satsuki and grinned, saying he'd finish what he started with her once he was done with Moroha. Hearing that, Moroha charged at him in rage, but no matter how hard he tried, his attacks couldn't land. He just wasn't strong enough yet. Watching him struggle, Satsuki's hope began to fade. But Shizuno told her that since Moroha was fighting to protect her, the least she could do was watch until the end. Then, Moroha's sword was knocked out of his hand and skidded across the floor. He dashed to retrieve it, but Jen stomped down on his hand, pinning him to the ground. Lying there, helpless, Moroha's memories from his past life suddenly came rushing back. He remembered Satsuki, then known as Sish, telling him she believed in him because he was the guardian of the Holy Sword, the ultimate swordsman. At that very moment in the present, Satsuki echoed those same words. She yelled out that if he won, she'd kiss him. Something clicked inside him, and I bet you guys something means is clap her. With a sudden surge of energy, Moroha powered up, pouring his prana into his tag. Jen looked stunned as Moroha's whole presence changed. Moroha charged back in and, to Gen's shock, used Celerity himself, a technique it had taken Gen 3 years to master. Furious that this so-called weakling had awakened such power, Gen swung with all his strength. But Moroha blocked the attack with his sword, and the sheer force caused Gen's axe to crack. Then, with a final blast of energy, Moroha overwhelmed Gen and knocked him out cold. The fight was over, but all the power he had just released was too much. Moroha lost consciousness. Just before he hit the ground, Satsuki caught him in her arms. While Moroha was still unconscious, the principal had quietly entered the arena during the battle. Watching him fight, she referred to him as something legendary, the ancient dragon. Later, while he lay resting, he was suddenly awakened by a kiss. But when he opened his eyes, it wasn't Satsuki or Shizuno he saw, it was a completely unfamiliar blonde girl leaning over him. She immediately stepped away, flustered, and stood beside the principal. The principal calmly explained that the girl had transferred magic into his body using her mouth to replace the massive amount of prana he had burned during the fight. When Moroha asked if she was really the one who kissed him, the girl's face went bright red and she hid behind the principal in embarrassment. Just then, a noise behind the curtain caught his attention. The principal pulled it open, and there was Satsuki tied up and gagged. Moroha stared in disbelief. The principal casually explained that Satsuki had tried to play with his joystick while he is sleeping of him while he was unconscious.
What do you mean by that?
So she had to put her in timeout. After sitting next to his bed, the principal told Moroha she had been watching his battle, and confirmed her belief that he was one of the ancient dragons. Moroha, completely lost, had no idea what she meant. She broke it down. According to the Japanese branch of the Order of White Knights, the ancient dragon was another name for the oldest kind of fallen hero. She explained that all saviors were reincarnated warriors from a past life, but in rare cases, some were reborn twice, carrying memories from two different lives. Moroha sighed, saying he could barely remember one past life, let alone two. The principal also mentioned that during his fight, Moroha had unknowingly activated a level 3 dark art while swinging his sword, and that massive burst of energy was what knocked Gen out cold. As the principal stood to leave, the little blonde girl looked at him with serious eyes and said, "I can already tell your insane RIZZ is gonna cause you some serious girl problems." After the others had left, Gen tied Satsuki's restraints, and the second she was free, she wrapped her arms around Moroha, beaming with joy. She told him how happy she was that he had remembered everything. Moroha tried to explain that he actually hadn't remembered much at all, but she was already leaning in to kiss him, reminding him that she had promised it earlier. Right then, Shizuno arrived and casually commented on the scene in front of her. Annoyed by her sudden entrance, Satsuki groaned, complaining that Shizuno always had a way of crashing her precious moments with Moroha. She said she had just been seconds away from finally achieving her lifelong dream of kissing him, but Shizuno ignored her entirely, walked right up to Moroha and kissed him instead. Satsuki instantly freaked out, called her a boyfriend thief and shoved her away. From around the corner, the little blonde girl watched the whole thing unfold. She sighed, feeling genuinely bad for Moroha, who was somehow dealing with love drama despite being technically single. The next day in class, Satsuki asked Moroha to exchange numbers with her. When he did, she excitedly celebrated getting her third contact. But Shizuno, standing behind her, congratulated her with a smirk, saying she'd leveled up from being a total loner to just a loser with one friend, destroying her immediately. Shizuno then sarcastically asked Satsuki to trade numbers with her too, just so she could feel a little more important. Satsuki didn't take it well, and the two immediately started arguing like an old married couple. While they bickered, a student came in looking for both Moroha and Shizuno. They followed the student up to the rooftop, where he turned to Moroha and told him the principal had personally recommended him to become a rank C seed. He admitted he was impressed by Moroha's strength and mentioned he had watched the entire fight back in the arena. Noticing Moroha eyeing his name tag, he casually revealed that he was Gen's older brother. Jin went on to explain that as a rank C, Moroha would start receiving a paycheck and have a guaranteed spot with the Order of the White Knights after graduation. But there was a catch: rank C seeds were automatically assigned to the Strikers, an elite anti-metaphysical squad that Jin himself led. He told Moroha to take his time thinking it over. But Moroha had only one question: how much would he get paid? And once he heard the number, he agreed on the spot without hesitation. Shizuno just sighed and told Jin she'd also be joining the striker training sessions. Moroha looked surprised, but Jin explained that he had already invited her earlier. As he was getting ready to leave, Satsuki, who had clearly been eavesdropping, suddenly ran up and begged to join too. Jin didn't hold back. He called her a useless bitch with no power, and Shizuno added that she was only good at getting beat up by his little brother. Jin excused himself and walked away. Moroha noticed Satsuki looking like she was about to cry and tried to comfort her, but she brushed it off and ran, saying she was fine and promising to get stronger so she could fight beside him someday. Later, Moroha and Shizuno attended their first striker training session. As they observed the others, Shizuno told him they were known as the Golden Generation, a title they earned after taking down more Metaphysicals than any other team in the Japan branch. Most of them were rank B or higher. Moroha started to question if he could even keep up. After training, on their way home, they ran into Satsuki, who had been waiting for them. She invited them out for food, but Shizuno declined, saying they were tired and needed to rest. Moroha looked like he wanted to say yes, free food sounded amazing, but Shizuno cut him off, reminding him he had training responsibilities now. Satsuki apologized for not thinking about that and offered to hang out another day when they were free. After she left, Moroha scolded Shizuno for how cold she had been toward Satsuki, then walked off on his own. One morning, Satsuki called up Shizuno and asked if she wanted to hang out. Still half asleep, Shizuno groggily said she wasn't interested. But Satsuki reminded her that she'd already promised to go out on her day off, so no backing out. A little later, they met up at the mall, where Satsuki explained that she wanted help picking out a present for her older brother. The two spent the entire day browsing shop after shop, struggling to decide on the perfect gift. Eventually, they sat down on a bench to rest. Shizuno casually mentioned that sugar helped after a long day, clearly hinting she wanted Satsuki to buy her a treat. After grabbing them some snacks, Satsuki's eyes landed on two young kids nearby. Something about them reminded her of her past life with Fraga, but before she could think much of it, the ground suddenly cracked open. From the nearby fountain, a massive metaphysical burst out, shaped like a giant snake. Satsuki locked eyes with the creature while Shizuno stood frozen in place. One of the kids she had seen earlier was close to the danger zone and too terrified to move. Satsuki was scared too, but she didn't want to freeze up in front of someone she cared about. So she pushed the fear down, summoned her prana, and sprang into action. She snapped Shizuno out of her daze and pointed at the child, asking her to get him to safety while she faced the beast. Shizuno warned her not to go alone, but Satsuki said she just needed to stall the creature until people could escape. She charged in, slashing at it and managing to wound it slightly. Shizuno then chanted a spell and launched a magical attack, letting Satsuki know she'd already contacted Moroha and the strikers for backup. Satsuki told her to evacuate with the others, but Shizuno refused, reminding her that she used to be the Netherworld sorceress and she wasn't going anywhere. They lured the creature into the now empty mall, trying to keep the fight away from civilians. Just when they thought they had it cornered, another head burst from the ground. It was a multi-headed metaphysical. One of the heads lunged forward. Shizuno shoved Satsuki out of the way and took the full hit herself, collapsing to the floor. Satsuki, shaken and unable to move, realized she was being petrified. Shizuno, struggling, told her to increase her prana output to resist it. But Satsuki still couldn't move. Desperate, she called out Moroha's name. At the same time, the school's combat unit was reviewing the scene from a distance. Moroha walked in and immediately asked for a status update. Jin explained that the situation was bad. They had never seen a metaphysical with so many heads before. Moroha insisted they had to help Shizuno and Satsuki, but Jin said the team wasn't strong enough to risk direct confrontation. Hearing that made Moroha think of his parents and how they had died powerless. His voice sharpened. If they couldn't save their own friends, then what right did they have to call themselves saviors? Back at the mall, Satsuki was desperately trying to wake Shizuno, but just then, one of the creature's heads lashed out, wrapping its tongue around her and pulling her in, trying to swallow her whole. Right before it could, Moroha made a dramatic entrance, slicing the tongue clean off in one smooth motion. He saw the state the girls were in. Fueled by rage, Moroha went all in on the creature, slashing and striking, but it wasn't enough. It started to overpower him. Just when things looked bad, Shizuno finally came to and shouted to him, reminding him that he still had another power. At that moment, Moroha's mind was hit with a memory from one of his past lives. His expression darkened as he said he never forgives those who try to take what's his. While chanting a powerful spell, one of the heads swallowed him whole. But inside its mouth, he completed the spell and unleashed it from within. The creature exploded from the inside, and Moroha emerged from the blast, holding a glowing orb. When Suppi asked what it was, Shizuno explained it was a level 5 Gina, an extremely rare core. Moroha infused it with his sword and delivered the finishing strike, finally bringing the creature down. The petrification wore off, and the girls were free again. They looked up in awe as Moroha slowly floated down like a hero out of a movie. The next day, on the school rooftop, Satsuki was caught off guard when Jin asked her to join the Striker Reserve. He said her bravery against the metaphysical had impressed him. He told Moroha he stood by his decision not to send backup, but also admitted Moroha hadn't been wrong for going in either. Satsuki was so thrilled that she didn't even fire back at Shizuno's usual teasing. Moroha, seeing a calm moment, asked Shizuno if they had known each other in his earlier past life. She just smiled and said they'd talk about it another time, then walked off, leaving him wondering. At a quiet little cafe in town, Moroha sat with Shizuno and Satsuki, all three of them wondering the same thing. Why had the principal told everyone that they had defeated the Metaphysical, when Moroha was clearly the one who did the heavy lifting? Moroha tried to be modest, saying they had still played a part in the battle, but Suppi wasn't buying it and pointed out that it was almost entirely his doing. Shizuno agreed, adding that the only others capable of taking down a monster like that were the top S-rank saviors in the Order of the White Knights. As they were talking, a blonde-haired guy walked into the cafe and tried to order something in English. Satsuki noticed the waitress struggling to understand him, so she stepped in to help. She asked him what he wanted in English, but he casually replied in fluent Japanese, catching her off guard. Embarrassed for falling for it, she called him a smug, picky snob. Before she could go off on him, Moroha quickly pulled her aside and apologized for her attitude. Shizuno guessed out loud that he was probably British, and the man smiled, impressed that she figured it out so fast. Satsuki, wanting revenge, took it upon herself to serve him personally. When he got his drink, he was impressed by the presentation, but one sip in, he spat it out, saying it was spicy, disgusting, and an insult to tea itself. He even called it a declaration of war against the country. Moroha offered to get him a towel, but just as he turned around, he noticed the man was no longer standing next to them. Something felt off. Time hadn't stopped, but the man was simply moving too fast. Before Moroha could react, the guy appeared right in front of him and threw a punch that stopped just inches from his face. The shockwave from the strike sent a powerful breeze through the entire cafe. But Moroha didn't flinch, not even a blink. That made the man pause and ask, was it that he couldn't dodge, or that he chose not to? Moroha just replied, if you were trying to kill me, I'd already be dead. The man, oddly disappointed, paid his bill and walked out. Satsuki, confused, asked who that even was. Shizuno explained that he was Sir Edward Lampard, one of the legendary Six Heads and the leader of Britain's hero unit. Later, in the locker room, Satsuki brought up a rumor going around campus that Sir Edward was actually there to inspect their academy. Shizuno guessed it was just an excuse. In reality, he was likely observing Moroha. After all, word about the oldest fallen hero had spread, and every country wanted him on their side. Satsuki started gushing about Moroha, bragging that even stuck-up guys like Edward would eventually bow to him when he ranked up to S-class. But Shizuno didn't share her excitement. To her, being an S-rank wasn't a dream, it meant zero freedom and a life constantly on the edge of danger. All Satsuki really took from Shizuno's earlier comment was that she wouldn't be able to hang out with Moroha anymore. She immediately started whining about it, completely missing the point. Shizuno just stared at her, wondering what it must feel like to live life as a simple, tiny-brained Satsuki. Not long after, the girls met up with Moroha, and the three of them walked together toward the arena. On the way, they were stopped by the blonde girl who had kissed Moroha at the clinic. She finally introduced herself as Maya Shinen. Satsuki instantly questioned what a kid like her was even doing at the academy. Wasn't she too young to be a student? Maya calmly explained that she awakened as a savior way earlier than most, so she couldn't attend regular elementary school. Instead, she stayed at the academy with her sister, Mary, who happened to be the principal. Moroha noticed that Shizuno already seemed familiar with Maya. Shizuno explained it was because her own brother was the chairman of the academy's board. Once they arrived at the arena, the instructor announced that there would be a joint class between first and second year students. He asked for a volunteer to demonstrate the training, and right away, a cocky second year named Kim stepped forward. Apparently jealous of the attention Moroha had been getting, he challenged him to a match, claiming he needed to boost his reputation. From the stands, Maya loudly cheered for Moroha, while Shizuno's brother tried to convince Sir Edward to watch the match to witness the strength of the so-called ancient dragon. The duel started, and Kim quickly launched a level 2 fire spell called Blaze at Moroha, but it was effortlessly blocked thanks to his magic resistance. Irritated, Kim ramped it up, but Moroha countered with a level 3 incineration spell, launching him backward and leaving him pretty much roasted. After leaving the arena, Moroha went to see the principal but found Meyer in the office instead. Since Mary wasn't there, he decided to wait. While they waited, Meyer offered to tell him everything she knew about Shizuno and her brother, since that seemed to be why he came. She revealed that Shizuno's grandfather had funded the academy and her brother was an executive in the Japan branch. But it didn't stop there, he also wanted more power, so he trained Shizuno as a kuroma and pushed her into the strikers, hoping to raise her up as another executive. To Moroha, it started to seem like her brother was just using her to climb the ladder for his own gain. Later that day, Moroha was napping outside when Shizuno came and sat beside him. When he woke up, he realized he'd just been dreaming about one of his former lives. But even more awkward, he didn't realize he was groping Shizuno until she made a sound. He jumped away like he'd touched fire. Embarrassed, he asked what she was doing there, and with zero shame, she told him she was simply having her plots inspected by him. Moroha quickly apologized for what happened and then asked if she was the Netherworld sorceress. She casually denied it. He kept staring at her, unsure what to think. That's when Shizuno smirked and told him he could go ahead and kiss her if he wanted. He just sighed and told her to get her mind out of the box. Elsewhere, Sir Edward was sitting in his car, chatting with his assistant about Moroha's abilities. Neither of them fully bought into the principal's report about him defeating the multi-headed metaphysical. Sir Edward said he'd need more than just second-hand information. He'd need a proper evaluation, and that meant using someone like Morton to test Moroha firsthand. Later that evening, Shizuno's brother invited Moroha over for dinner. At the table, Tadnori casually asked if Moroha knew what it took to qualify for rank S status. Moroha shook his head, so Shizuno's brother, Shozo, explained that to even be considered, one had to take down a metaphysical completely solo. Tadnori pointed out that Moroha had technically already done that. But Moroha disagreed, saying he didn't do it alone. Shizuno and Satsuki helped him. Trying to convince him otherwise, Shozo said that if he just stretched the truth a little and claimed full credit, he could quickly become the number 2 in the entire Japan branch. Just one small lie, and rank S was within reach. Shizuno objected, saying that kind of decision would come at the cost of Moroha's freedom. But her brother cut her off coldly, saying it was a family matter, not hers. Later that night, back in Shizuno's room, she apologized for her brother's pushy behavior. As Moroha looked around, he noticed how empty the room felt, like no part of it reflected her. She explained that her family picked out everything, down to the furniture. Nothing in the room was actually hers. As they continued talking, something emotional flickered in her eyes. She was remembering a past life. Before Moroha could ask, she quickly said she needed some fresh air, so he followed her out to the balcony. On his way home, Moroha noticed a car tailing them. He asked the driver to pull over and decided to walk the rest of the way alone. When he reached a quiet park, he called out to the person following him, warning them to leave peacefully. Instead of backing off, the figure channeled prana into their tag and attacked him. Moroha responded immediately, activating his own power and defending himself. As the fight continued, he realized something surprising. The attacker was a woman. She powered up and came at him again, but a sudden memory flashed in Moroha's mind. He instinctively cast a wind-based spell that pushed her back. She stumbled, then quickly turned and ran. Meanwhile, Sir Edward called Tadnori and said the test was complete. He admitted he was disappointed with Moroha's performance and didn't believe he was ready for rank S status, so he wouldn't be recommending him. The next day after school, Moroha arrived back at his dorm only to find Maya sitting comfortably inside. Shocked, he demanded to know why she was there. She calmly explained that her sister, the principal, had assigned her as his new roommate. Moroha told her to get out immediately, but she refused. Later that night, as they settled into sleep, Moroha silently prayed he wouldn't wake up accused of being a criminal. The following morning, Shozo informed Shizuno that she'd be studying abroad. The British HQ needed a kuroma, and thanks to her role in defeating the metaphysical, she was the perfect candidate. Shizuno was furious and immediately refused, but Shozo shut her down, saying it was a family decision. On her way to school, Shizuno met up with Moroha, Satsuki, and Maya. Satsuki mentioned that Maya had moved into Moroha's room, and he quickly clarified he had no clue what was going on either. Satsuki burst into the classroom and rushed straight to Moroha. She told him she'd asked the principal if she could be his roommate, but her request had been shot down. Then, completely seriously, she said she didn't care if he was cheating on her with another girl. What really bothered her was him replacing her as his little sister. Before Moroha could even respond, she glanced over and noticed Shizuno's desk was empty. Curious, she asked where Shizuno was. But right then, Maya ran in with urgent news. Something was wrong at Shizuno's house. At that moment, Shizuno was having lunch with Sir Edward and her brother. Her brother had just finished saying how glad he was that Shizuno would be under Sir Edward's care in the UK. Just then, their butler entered and informed Shizuno that someone from the school was on the phone. She left to answer, expecting to speak with the principal, but instead, it was Moroha. He asked why she wasn't at school. She tried to lie, saying she was sick, but he called her out. He told her if she didn't tell the truth, he'd show up at her house himself. Finally, she admitted she was leaving for the UK to study. When he asked if that was her choice, she stayed silent. He told her to stop blindly listening to her brother, but she said she didn't have a choice. Her family's name came first. Before hanging up, she told him not to worry and that she'd be fine. Back at the table, the butler came again, saying someone was at the door. Her brother told him to ignore it. But before anyone could react, Moroha crashed through the window. Tadnori stood up, threatening to have him arrested. Moroha ignored him and walked straight to Sir Edward, openly admitting he was the one who defeated the metaphysical. Shizuno immediately called him an idiot for throwing away his chance at freedom. Moroha said it didn't matter, he may not remember his past life, but she still mattered to him now. When he asked what she truly wanted, Shizuno hesitated, then finally admitted she wanted to stay with him. Her brother tried to interfere, but Moroha grabbed her, jumped out the window with her in his arms, and dove into a waiting car. Back inside, Mary asked Sir Edward to stop them, but he declined. Getting involved now would cause diplomatic chaos. Tadnori, panicking, got down on one knee and begged him to help. Sir Edward reluctantly agreed. While escaping, their car was suddenly attacked, and Moroha barely managed to avoid crashing. Sir Edward and his assistant Angela jumped down from a nearby vehicle, demanding that he return Shizuno. Moroha refused. Sir Edward argued that if Moroha had truly defeated the metaphysical, he wouldn't need to smuggle Shizuno out, but since there was no proof, he wasn't convinced. Moroha asked, "Would beating you be proof enough?" Sir Edward smiled and accepted the challenge. The fight kicked off fast, and Moroha quickly found himself completely outmatched. Every move he made was countered, and when he tried casting a spell, Sir Edward mocked him, broke his sword mid-chant, and told him to give up. Just then, Maya appeared and cast a barrier around them. Moroha thanked her. Now he could go all out without holding back. He powered up, channeled his prana again, and began casting another spell. Sir Edward rolled his eyes, wondering why he was repeating the same failed tactic. But this time, it was different. Before Edward could react, Moroha blurred past him with lightning speed. Caught completely off guard, Edward couldn't block the follow-up strike. His sword shattered on impact. Just as Moroha was about to land the finishing blow, he noticed a second tag hanging around Sir Edward's neck. Edward activated it instantly, and golden armor formed around his entire body. He complimented Moroha for being strong enough to push him this far, then launched a powerful counterattack. Now armored and fully powered, Sir Edward regained the upper hand. Blow after blow pushed Moroha back. Cornered and exhausted, Moroha looked like he was about to lose. Just as Moroha was being overwhelmed in the fight, another memory from a past life suddenly surged into his mind, a spell he had never used before. He began chanting it slowly, and both Angela and the girls, who had been locked in their own fight nearby, stopped what they were doing and turned to watch. Angela quickly realized what was happening and muttered in shock. It was a level 8 dark art. Shizuno, fully understanding what was about to unfold, smiled and said aloud that he was casting a curse that would change everything. Surprisingly, Sir Edward looked pleased. As Moroha released the spell, everything it touched instantly froze over. Before the magic reached Edward, he raised a hand and declared Moroha the lucky number 7, the newest addition to the Elite 6 heads. After the duel, they all went to the principal's house. While talking inside, the doorbell rang. It was Sir Edward. He had come to speak with both Moroha and Shizuno. Calmly, he admitted defeat and agreed to let Shizuno stay in Japan. Then, turning to Moroha, he asked something that had been bugging him. Why didn't Moroha move during their tense encounter at the cafe? Moroha explained that he could sense Edward wasn't trying to kill him, just based on the feel of his prana. Edward was impressed and, right there, officially endorsed Moroha for rank S. A month later, school let out for summer vacation. The strikers, however, were sent to a special summer training camp. On departure day, the principal used a 1 use per day teleportation spell to transport them. Maya explained it was a rare spell only she and her sister could use. At the beach, the group joked around, enjoying the break. In a chaotic moment, Satsuki had a wardrobe malfunction and ended up walking around topless like it was nothing. Shizuno snarkily commented that Satsuki was finally one step ahead in their endless competition for Moroha's attention. Soon, the rest of the students, including Maya, joined them, just in time for Kazuki to start harassing Moroha, getting handsy in the process. Before things went too far, Jin called everyone together. He announced that their training would be individual this time. Each person had to pick one goal to accomplish before the camp ended. Satsuki proudly declared that her mission was to become faster than Momo. Momo, clearly caught off guard, awkwardly asked her to pick something else. Satsuki teased her, saying she was just scared of her promising future while playfully puffing out her nearly non-existent chest. Momo dryly replied that she just didn't want Satsuki to fail again, especially since she'd already lost in the melon department. Eventually, the race began, and Satsuki trailed far behind, eating Momo's dust. Moroha wished her luck, but Shizuno and Maya both agreed that she didn't stand a chance. Momo was on a completely different level. Right then, Moroha's phone rang. It was Sir Edward. He complained about working while Moroha was having fun at the beach, surrounded by beautiful girls. Moroha asked how long he'd been stalking his Snapchat, since that was the only way he could know what he was up to. Edward claimed it was the principal who told him he had called her to organize the upcoming 6 heads meeting being held in Moroha's honor. Moroha was surprised but quickly cut the call, saying he wasn't interested. A second later, Edward called back, whining like a needy girlfriend. After the call, Moroha told the others he was being officially endorsed as rank S. Maya warned him that the Russian terror wouldn't approve. She admitted she felt guilty. If she hadn't kissed him and helped unlock his powers, things might have stayed under wraps. One night, Moroha and Satsuki walked down to the beach. There, she asked him to help train her to beat Momo. Moroha suggested picking a different goal. but she insisted she didn't want to stay the useless little sister she was in her past life. As she hugged him, Moroha had another memory of his past life as Frogga. He remembered always leaving for battle while she stayed behind. Satsuki explained it was because she didn't want to slow him down. But Moroha told her the truth, it was because he wanted to protect her from the dangers of war. That's also why he didn't want her challenging Momo now. She confessed that the challenge had started selfishly. Momo was the only one who could match his speed, so they always trained together, and Satsuki didn't like being left out. She thought if she could beat Momo, she could become his partner instead. Moved by her honesty, Moroha smiled and agreed to help her train. The students threw a lively barbecue party, and all eyes were on Satsuki as everyone praised her amazing grilling skills. Momo asked if she'd been practicing her cooking lately. Satsuki smiled and said she'd always dreamed of making food for her big brother, so she took time to learn properly. Away from the crowd and noise, Moroha stood quietly with another male student, who congratulated him on being considered for rank as they chatted briefly before Kame strolled over with his usual arrogance. He smugly said he'd heard rumors that Moroha's promotion was already falling through, then went a step further, offering to make Moroha his minion so he could learn from someone superior. According to Kame, that was just how things were meant to be. The guy standing next to Moroha, Kanzaki, didn't even flinch. He casually looked over at Kame and said, "Ignore this clown. He's a first year who's not even half as good as you." Moroha chuckled, brushing off the nonsense without a second thought. Later that night, Satsuki continued her training under Moroha's watch, running across the surface of the ocean with pure focus. Afterward, as they were about to head back, she paused and looked out toward the sea. She said she felt something strange, like an eerie presence coming from the water. Moroha brushed it off, saying it was probably just the cold messing with her senses. 2 days before the training camp ended, the group gathered at the beach for a fireworks show. Maya mentioned how fireworks always brought her comfort. Her sister used them to calm her down back when she first awakened as a savior and felt overwhelmed. The students joked around, and in the middle of all the fun, Satsuki accidentally set Kanzaki's butt on fire. While he frantically put out the flames, he told Moroha to go fetch more fireworks. On his way, Moroha ran into Shizuno. She asked to tag along, and the two sat together by the sidewalk. He apologized for not spending more time with her during the camp and mentioned how nice it would be to bring his uncle and aunt along next time. Shizuno smiled and said she'd come too, then casually hinted that she'd like to be introduced as his girlfriend. Moroha nearly choked at the suggestion. Elsewhere, the 6 heads gathered for an official meeting to discuss Moroha's promotion to rank S. The Russian and French chiefs voted against it. The Chinese chief simply didn't care, and the American representative said there wasn't enough data to properly assess his strength. The Japanese chief defended Moroha, reminding everyone that he had taken down a 9-headed metaphysical on his own. But the French chief insisted they needed proof. Before the debate could continue, Sir Edward tried to vouch for Moroha's power, but suddenly, Ando, the head of the Japan branch, clutched his chest in pain. Right after that, the emergency alarms blared, another metaphysical had appeared. At the training camp, the strikers watched the live broadcast of the monster. Everyone was stunned by its size. Jin, analyzing the feed, revealed that the 6 heads had labeled it a fortress-class threat. He calculated its approach speed and said it would reach the island in about an hour. However, with the head of Japan's branch currently away and the nature of the creature unknown, Jin said they were under strict orders not to engage. Instead, he told everyone to return to their rooms, pack their things, and prepare to evacuate along with the island's residents. Kame was the first to dip, claiming he had a sudden stomach issue and needed a doctor. No one believed him, but no one stopped him either. Satsuki hesitated, clearly uneasy about leaving, but Moroha gently told her to follow the orders for now. With heavy hearts, they all headed back, the weight of what was coming starting to settle in. Meanwhile, over at British HQ, the mood was tense. The Russian terror firmly told Endo not to return to Japan under any circumstances. The American chief pushed back, saying there was no way they could defeat the metaphysical without full involvement from the 6 heads, and that her idea made no sense. But the Russian terror wasn't backing down. She reminded everyone that the so-called Rank S candidate was currently in Japan. If Moroha really was worthy of the title, he should be the one to prove it by handling the threat alone. The French chief backed her up and, before Endo could protest, cast a sleep spell on him to make sure he wouldn't leave. At that point, Sir Edward had no choice but to quietly hope that Moroha would be able to handle whatever was coming on the island. Back on the island, the last of the civilians were boarding evacuation ships, but Moroha, Satsuki, Shizuno, and Jin had all stayed behind. They believed they were the only ones left until the rest of the strikers showed up. Apparently, they'd missed the last boat, but it was clear they had no intention of leaving their teammates behind. Together, the group began forming a plan. Using the sound of blaring sirens, they lured the creature toward the port where they had prepared their ambush. But just as the monster got close, it suddenly stopped. It seemed like the plan had failed until fireworks lit up the sky. Kame had returned, using the noise and light from the fireworks to redirect the creature back on track and get it into position. With the beast now where they wanted it, the battle began. The kuromas unleashed a barrage of spells, aiming for the monster's legs. When the metaphysical responded by releasing swarms of grotesque, insect-like creatures, the shurins stepped up to fight them off. Jin led an assault on the creature's left flank and managed to blow off one of its legs. He then called out to Moroha. In response, Moroha blasted music through nearby speakers to pull the creature's focus. As it turned toward him, he dashed forward at full speed. Channeling the same Black Gina spell he had used against the nine-headed snake, he slashed through one of its massive arms. He landed hard, right in front of the monster. It tried to crush him with its other arm, and he barely managed to block the strike. Elsewhere on the island, the kuromas continued hammering it with spells while the shurins fended off more of the insect swarms. Kanzaki, furious and emotionally charged, fought with extra intensity, partly due to her frustration that all her attempts to seduce Moroha during training had failed. Jin cut through another of the creature's hind legs just as Momo arrived to report how the strikers were holding up. They were about to clear the path for Moroha to land the finishing blow until the creature did something terrifying. It let out a low, distorted laugh, and multiple new faces appeared across its back. Everyone froze as the realization sank in. It was another multi-headed metaphysical. Jin didn't hesitate. He immediately called for a full retreat. The creature suddenly let out a massive sonic blast that ripped through the battlefield. Most of the strikers were knocked out cold. Whatever protective spells they had were useless against it. Moroha was the only one left standing, barely holding on. With nearly everyone injured, the insect-like minions started swarming uncontested. Seeing that, Satsuki took charge. She shouted for anyone still able to move to help carry the wounded to safety, then charged at the bugs herself, pushing out every bit of prana she could summon. Momo rushed over to Moroha, giving him a quick update on what was happening. He told her to get back and regroup with the others. He had to finish this alone. As he stood there, trying to figure out how to beat the beast, fragments of another past life suddenly came flooding back. A spell, one he had forgotten until now, resurfaced in his mind. Without hesitation, he sprinted onto the monster's back, carving intricate runes into it with each step. Momo returned, holding off the bugs so he could concentrate. As he moved across the creature, he shouted to Satsuki, telling her to get to safety. Hearing his voice, Satsuki fainted from exhaustion, and Momo rushed to shield her. With everyone now under the barrier Maya had cast, Moroha finished the last symbol and activated the spell. In a flash, the creature exploded. Back at British HQ, Ando snapped awake just as the explosion lit up the screen. He quietly nodded in approval, though the Russian and French chiefs clearly weren't thrilled. The American rep admitted there was no denying Moroha had earned his rank S status. To keep things diplomatic, Sir Edward suggested they still treat him as a student and keep him on probation until graduation. Meanwhile, Maya helped treat the injured strikers while Moroha and Satsuki rested quietly by the shore. Moroha admitted he was exhausted, and Satsuki gently pulled his head into her lap. Moments later, Shizuno joined them, claiming her chest would make a much better pillow. The two girls started bickering while Moroha sat in between, looking helpless and uncomfortable. Shizuno teased that wood wasn't ideal for napping and pulled him into her chest instead. The tug of war began, both girls pulling him back and forth. That's when Maya and a few others showed up. They thanked Maya for healing them, and Remy tried to hype up his own performance, asking if anyone had seen his epic moves. Moroha asked where he'd even been. Kanzaki answered for him, saying he'd fainted before the real fight began. Then, without warning, she pulled Moroha into her chest too, declaring she was going to be his new pillow. Jin immediately stepped in, yanked her away, and scolded her, making everyone laugh. A few days later, Moroha found a note in his locker asking him to meet someone behind the gym. Curious, he went, and there stood a silver-haired girl he didn't recognize. She introduced herself as a Russian exchange student. He asked if she was trying to lure him into some kind of trap, but she shook her head and confessed she wanted him to be her boyfriend. Moroha blinked, thinking he'd misheard. But no, she doubled down, asking him seriously to go out with her. He raised a hand and told her to slow down. "I'm not the kind of rank S that just says yes to every confession," he said. The rejection only made her more determined. Still, being the gentleman he was, he offered to be her friend. Later in class, the same girl was introduced formally as Alina Arshabina. Satsuki immediately asked why she wasn't using her father's name like most Russians. Alina calmly replied that she had no parents. Shizuno followed up, cold as ever, and asked if she had an ulterior motive for enrolling in their school. Unbothered by the rudeness, Alina said her only reason for being there was to become Moroha's woman, and that she'd already confessed to him. That was all it took for Satsuki to leap out of her chair, shouting that no one was allowed near her big brother without her permission. Alina just smiled and called her cute. Satsuki forgot her frustration for a brief second when Alina called her cute, until Shizuno cleared her throat, reminding her to stay focused. Snapping out of it, Satsuki said that sweet talk wouldn't work on her. Alina then suddenly pleaded with her to let her date Moroha. But before Satsuki could respond, Shizuno stepped in and demanded to know why Alina supposedly loved him. Alina simply said it was love at first sight. Satsuki rolled her eyes, accusing her of stealing that line from some terrible romance anime. Meanwhile, the male students had gathered in their own little circle, hyping Moroha up like he was some kind of chick magnet thanks to his overpowered RIZZ. Moroha, on the other hand, looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. That evening at the arena, two strikers were sparring while the rest watched from the sidelines. Sophie, one of the female strikers, tried to dodge an incoming strike, but Taki, her opponent, pulled her back down and went in for an attack. While sitting, she used her plots to deflect his strike. Satsuki was stunned, but Moroha explained she had used her adamant skill to harden her skin for defense. While Satsuki and Kame bickered over who would win the match, Momo slid over beside Moroha and quietly asked if it was true that he and Alina were dating. He immediately denied it and asked where she even heard that from. Maya chimed in, saying that was all anyone had been gossiping about lately. The principal, eavesdropping nearby, found it amusing. She told everyone that love just seemed to find people naturally. Then, she reminded them to be kind to Alina and help her feel welcome. Satsuki redirected their attention to the duel, where Taki had just used an ancient light art to set up a trap. Sophie, unaware, walked right through it, boosting her prana to break the spell. Taki blushed like crazy while trying not to stare. Sophie laughed, thinking he was mad the trap didn't work, until he told her to look down. She did, and realized the spell had sliced her clothes to ribbons. Mortified, she screamed and slapped Taki so hard he flew across the arena. With training done, everyone started heading home. On the way, they ran into Alina, who immediately asked Moroha to go on a date. Satsuki protested, saying he could only go if she and Shizuno came along too. Shizuno turned them down, saying she had other obligations. The next day, Moroha was waiting for Satsuki and Alina, both of whom were running late. Alina finally showed up, dressed in a full cat costume, trying her best to act cute and charming. Moroha stared for a moment and told her straight up that she looked ridiculous. Embarrassed, she wanted to disappear on the spot. Just as he tried to lift her mood, Satsuki called and said she couldn't make it. She was volunteering with Sophie at a soup kitchen. Eventually, Alina ditched the costume and their date finally began. First stop, food. While they ate, she shared that the Russian branch trained saviors like soldiers and threw them into combat early. She then asked if he thought she'd transferred schools just to assassinate him. He said no, which genuinely surprised her. She admitted he reminded her of Sir Edward. Moroha groaned in horror. At the mall, Alina tried to sneak a kiss while they were taking a selfie, but he dodged her. At the cinema, she climbed into his lap, and when he moved her to another seat, she held onto his thighs, making him freeze. Meanwhile, Shizuno was on the phone with Angela, asking what she knew about Alina. Angela warned her Alina was known as the Mainator, a title given to the Russian savior killer. Later that night, their date ended at the park. As they watched a kid play with his dad, Moroha shared that it reminded him of playing with his uncle. Alina asked why not his father. He explained that his dad had passed away, and they were alike in that they were both orphans raised by family. She said she'd like to meet his aunt and uncle, and he said he'd be interested in meeting her brother. That night, a crow named Kondrad landed on Alina's windowsill. She told it the plan was going smoothly. She'd been sent to get close to Moroha since his weakness was the people he cared about. She knew she couldn't beat him in a straight fight, so the only way to gain the upper hand was by becoming one of those precious bombs. She didn't seem thrilled about it, but the reward was worth it. If she succeeded, she'd be allowed to spend time with her brother. The next day, she found a note in her locker inviting her to meet Shizuno in the park that night. When she arrived, Shizuno told her it was a challenge, a duel. Alina asked why, and Shizuno said she knew her true identity, the Mainator. Alina said nothing. Shizuno pulled her tag and released her prana, casting freezing shade. Alina blocked it and fought back. Shizuno launched another spell, but Alina hid behind a tree, found an opening, and tried to ambush her. Just before the blade reached Shizuno, her staff transformed into an ice dragon that knocked Alina away. The dragon pinned her down, but Alina powered up, absorbed Shizuno's next spell, and began launching attacks of her own. She destroyed the ice dragon and cornered Shizuno. Sword at her throat, she told her to keep her mouth shut about what she knew. Shizuno asked what would happen if she didn't. Alina said calmly, "Next time, I won't hold back." Just then, a teacher approached, and Alina vanished into the night. The next day, Maya told Moroha that Shizuno had been suspended. He went to visit her and found her injured, leg wrapped up. She told him everything, Alina's real identity, the fight, the plan. Moroha got mad, saying she had been reckless and didn't need to get herself hurt like that. Shizuno apologized but begged him to be cautious around Alina. Moroha replied, "I don't think she's dangerous. Honestly, she seems like a good person." Meanwhile, a wounded Alina slowly opened her eyes as Kondrad, now disguised as a cat, nudged her awake. He questioned why she didn't finish off Shizuno when she had the perfect chance, coldly reminding her that failing the mission meant she wouldn't get to see her brother again. Before Alina could respond, there was a sudden knock at the door. Her expression shifted. She quickly let Conrad slip out the back and rush to the entrance, only to freeze when she saw who it was, Moroha and Satsuki. Panicked, she tiptoed back and pretended no one was home. But the two weren't buying it. They circled around to the back entrance, and before she could come up with another excuse, Satsuki stood there, arms crossed, scolding her for trying to avoid them. Inside the house, Moroha gently tended to Alina's injured leg while Satsuki prepared a simple meal in the kitchen. What started as a short visit turned into an entire day spent together. That night, Moroha stayed behind to watch over her, and for the next few days, he and the others took turns helping her recover. Each friend did their part to make sure she healed properly. During Sophie's turn watching over Alina, she mentioned that she planned on joining the Japanese branch after graduation and asked Alina if she had ever considered doing the same. That single conversation hit Alina hard. She realized she had gotten too comfortable, letting her mission slip further and further from her mind. So, the next time Moroha came by, she smiled and asked if they could go on a date the following day. The next day, the two went to an amusement park. When they arrived, Moroha teased her, joking that at least she wasn't clinging to his arm like last time. But instead of replying, Alina took off her tag and unleashed her prana. "I know you figured it out," she said quietly, "but I'm not going to run anymore. I'm here to finish this." Outside the park gates, Shizuno and Satsuki had just arrived, only to be stopped by Sophie. Satsuki tried to explain that Alina had gone rogue, but Shizuno quickly pieced it together. The American branch wanted Moroha to eliminate the so-called Mainator so they wouldn't have to. Satsuki told Shizuno to go in and stop them, but not before challenging Sophie to a duel. Back inside, Moroha defended himself against Alina's swift, relentless attacks. He praised her strength but was caught off guard when she suddenly absorbed his boosted prana mid-fight. Startled, he backed off and launched a fire spell, but she deflected it with ease. He then noticed his sword had changed color, wondering if it was some magical side effect. She rushed in again, and though he managed to block, she was beginning to overpower him. He channeled more prana to boost his strength and finally managed to push her back. Preparing for a full power strike, he tried again, but Alina absorbed his energy before he could finish. She closed the distance and landed a solid kick to his chest. Clutching the spot, Moroha looked up at her and asked, "Why didn't you go for the kill?" Meanwhile, Sophie and Shizuno's duel had escalated. Sophie admitted she underestimated Shizuno, and now it was time to get serious. Back in the park, Alina pressed the attack. She asked why Moroha wasn't using his full strength, and he admitted it was because he had struggled so much to control his prana in the past. That comment triggered another memory from his past life. Steadying himself, he changed his stance and told her to come at him again. She lunged at full speed, but he effortlessly dodged and sliced her side in one clean motion. Meanwhile, Satsuki and Sophie's battle was heating up. Satsuki noticed Sophie's weapon was breaking apart. Sophie admitted she still hadn't found a weapon strong enough to handle her full prana. She disarmed Satsuki, but Satsuki activated her adamant defense just in time to block. She boosted her energy, and Sophie's weapon shattered completely. Admitting defeat, Sophie told her to keep working hard and left the rest to her. Back in the arena, Moroha had the upper hand. But instead of finishing Alina off, he stepped back and gave her space. "Is this about your brother?" he asked. "Is that why you have to kill me?" Alina didn't answer. "I'll help you," Moroha said gently. "We'll rescue him together. I'll set you free." She shook her head. "It's impossible. I'll find a way." That's when Shizuno arrived. "You don't have to fight anymore," she told Alina calmly, "because your brother doesn't exist." Alina's expression twisted in disbelief. Shizuno explained she had spoken to the institute director. Alina had been dropped off as a newborn. There was no record of her ever having a sibling. Alina shook her head. "You're lying." "Then tell me his name. What does he look like?" But Alina couldn't answer. Nothing came to mind. That's when Conrad revealed himself, stepping from the shadows. He admitted it was all true. The brother, the memories, it was all an illusion he planted. Alina's face fell as her world cracked. Conrad seized the moment, forcefully taking control of her body. With Alina's form, he attacked Moroha and laughed, knowing full well that Moroha wouldn't risk hurting her. But Moroha, desperate to protect her, powered up and clashed with her sword. He finally managed to break Alina's blade and land a precise strike that separated Conrad from her body. As she collapsed, Moroha caught her in his arms. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're not alone. I'll be your family now." Meanwhile, Conrad returned to Russian HQ, only to face the consequences of his failure. The Russian terror was waiting for him, and she was not pleased. Without hesitation, she had his eyes removed, punishing him brutally for not completing his mission. Back in Japan, one morning outside her home, Alina was trying to sneak away when she was unexpectedly met by Moroha. She stopped in her tracks, surprised. "How did you know I'd try to leave?" she asked. "I just had a feeling," he replied. Alina told him she didn't want to drag him into her mess and thanked him for everything he had done. But as she tried to walk past, Moroha pulled her into a hug and without a word, used a sleep spell to knock her out gently. The love-struck fool then called Sir Edward. "I'm going to war with the Russian branch," he said. Alone. Sometime later, Moroha stood on a deserted bridge in Russia, face to face with Bernard, one of the Russian field chiefs. He asked Bernard to reveal the location of the terror. As expected, Bernard refused. But once he realized who Moroha was, he scoffed and declared he'd crush the fraud who dared to claim the rank S title. Bernard unleashed his prana and lunged at Moroha, but Moroha easily dodged, leaping onto one of the stone pillars supporting the bridge. As the wind picked up, a memory from a past life flashed in his mind. He began chanting a familiar incantation. Bernard recognized it instantly. His eyes widened. "Stop," he shouted, but Moroha ignored him. With a fierce flash, he unleashed Thunderstorm Helix, the sky erupting as Bernard was blasted back and knocked unconscious. Angela, who had been silently watching nearby, walked up beside him. "You're not going to finish him?" she asked. Moroha shook his head. "I never planned on spilling blood in this solo war." Later, on a train, Angela warned him that if word got out Britain was assisting him in his personal war, it would be a diplomatic disaster. Moroha simply replied, "No one will find out." She raised an eyebrow and asked why he spared Bernard. That's when he recalled their conversation after the fight. Even as Bernard lay defeated, Moroha didn't interrogate him. He knew the answer already. "I don't know where she is," Bernard had said. "I figured as much," Moroha replied. "So, would you like to report that I'm declaring war on your branch?" Angela was stunned when he told her. "Why would you reveal that to your enemy? No point in dragging out pointless questions," he said. Bernard had scoffed, mocking Japan for being weak. In response, Moroha's eyes went cold. He stabbed Bernard and said, "In my past life, I fought and won wars alone. Don't call my people weak." Then he knocked him unconscious and left. Now, back on the train, Moroha explained his plan to Angela. "I'll keep knocking down every field chief she has until she's forced to come out and face me. I don't have to kill them, just defeat them. Let their failure punish them." Elsewhere, Bernard, having recovered enough to move, made his way back to HQ and stood before the Russian terror once again. He asked her for one final request, to take Moroha down with him. She coldly refused. "I don't reward failure," she said. "Die with dignity." Still, Bernard managed a weak smile. "He didn't kill me, even after using Thunderstorm Helix." That, surprisingly, impressed her. As expected of one who bears the name Ancient Dragon, she muttered. Then she raised her hand and used Thunderbolt Dragon, vaporizing Bernard in a flash. Afterward, she turned to her remaining 3 field chiefs. Though Bernard had revealed where Moroha was headed next, she ordered them not to interfere. "Reinforce the capital," she said. "Let him come." Back on the train, Moroha complained about sharing a cabin with Angela, who immediately started teasing him. "You just can't handle being around a real woman, huh?" She smirked, offering to cuddle. Blushing, he accepted, only for her to call him a creep and shove him to the other side of the cabin, warning him to keep his hands to himself. Meanwhile, back in Japan, tensions were flaring again. Satsuki was arguing with Alina, who had just declared she was going to become Moroha's sister because he had promised they were family. Shizuno walked in, completely done with their drama. "Enough," she snapped. "You're both acting like children." Alina turned to her, but Shizuno wasn't done. "I have no intention of helping someone like you," she said coldly. Satsuki laughed it off, finding the tension between the two amusing. But Shizuno cut them both down with one sentence. "Moroha's out there fighting a war by himself, and you two are acting like fools." Outside, Satsuki and Shizuno ran into Maya. As the girls chatted, they admitted they were all worried about Moroha and silently hoped he'd make it back safely. Meanwhile, true to his word, Moroha continued moving from city to city, systematically suppressing each Russian branch he came across. He didn't stop. He didn't hesitate. But on their final stop, something felt off. Moroha and Angela noticed they were being tailed. Without warning, Moroha left her behind and lured the followers into a dense forest. There, one of the Russian field chiefs stepped out from the trees and confronted him. "You're surrounded by rank of saviors," the man said. "There's no escape." But Moroha just gave him a look. "You must have forgotten," he replied. "I've got plot armor." The chief was stunned. Still, instead of attacking, he actually pleaded with Moroha to give up and go home. He admitted he didn't want to disobey the terror, but if avoiding a fight meant sparing lives, he'd gladly take that route. Unfortunately, one of his comrades wasn't having it. Disgusted by the chief's hesitation, he shouted at him to shut up, and then immediately gave the signal to kill Moroha. Spells started flying. From the bushes, multiple attackers launched Freezing Shade in unison, but Moroha reacted quickly and dodged out of the way. Suddenly, a pair of twin saviors jumped at him from behind. Moroha blocked both attacks easily, even while trying to explain that he wasn't the one who killed Bernard. But before the twins could respond, a fireball came flying straight toward them. Moroha spotted it just in time. Without thinking, he shoved the twins out of the way and leapt back, narrowly avoiding the blast himself. He looked around, wondering if the two were okay, only to notice a strange mist forming around him. Poison, he muttered. He quickly summoned Breeze Blade and swept the toxic fog away, then launched the spell toward the caster, knocking him out cold. But before he could catch a breath, another attacker came at him from above. Moroha followed the movement with his eyes, jumped, and knocked the enemy right out of the sky, sending him crashing into two of his own allies. He barely touched the ground before locating yet another fighter nearby, a young woman. Instead of attacking her, he asked why she had weakened the strength of her earlier freezing shade spell. She didn't answer his question. Instead, she looked at him and asked, "Why did you save the twins?" Moroha simply shrugged. "I don't like people dying." Before she could say anything else, he heard the twins calling for him nearby. He smiled, gently flicked her on the forehead, and ran off to help them. The twins tried to attack Moroha again, but he had no trouble knocking them out cold with just a couple of swift moves. Not far off, Angela was already locked in a fight with the final opponent from the group. Moroha asked what she was even doing there. "I'm not your sidekick," she snapped, stepping forward. "I'm not about to let you handle everything alone." The enemy turned slightly, revealing something attached to his back, a transmission mirror. Moroha's eyes narrowed. On the other side of that mirror was none other than the Russian terror herself. Before he could react, she began chanting a spell. Moroha shoved Angela out of the way, but he wasn't quick enough to dodge it himself. He blacked out. When he opened his eyes, his face was buried in Angela's bare chest. Panicking, he tried to sit up without causing a scene, but then realized something even worse: his clothes were gone too. Angela, completely unbothered, snuggled into him, nearly smothering him in the process. What's going on?" he gasped, trying not to freak out. Angela finally woke up, smiled, and said, "Well, good morning. Took you long enough." He mumbled something about her bare plots being in his face, and only then did she realize what was happening. She screamed, jumped out of bed, and quickly threw her underwear on. Still flustered, she explained, "Relax, perv. That spell messed you up bad. The only way to heal you fast enough was full skin contact. It's not like I wanted to." Before he could process it, the girl Moroha had flicked on the forehead earlier casually walked in. The two scrambled to get fully dressed while she calmly took a seat. Once they were all clothed, the girl introduced herself as Kedia. Angela asked how she managed to find them, and Kedia revealed she had someone tailing them all the way from the station. "I came because you're the only one who fights without killing," she said to Moroha, "and I need your help to save someone." She explained that her friend, Yuri, had been captured by the Terror and forced into servitude. On the train headed to the Terror's domain, Kedia told them how the Russian Terror forced saviors to battle each other. The strongest were handpicked to serve as her personal guards. When they reached the station, Moroha suddenly turned and flicked Kedia on the forehead again, this time hard enough to knock her out. Angela looked stunned. "Was that necessary? I don't want her caught up in this," he said. "She's already risking enough." As they walked away, Moroha turned to Angela. "You shouldn't come with me," he said seriously. "I can't protect you and fight her at the same time." At the Terror's estate, one of her returning field chiefs, the same one who had fought Moroha, came to report. His weakness is his refusal to kill, the chief began. But the Terror raised a hand, cutting him off. "If you failed, you don't get to explain." She nodded toward her guards. "Take him away." He was dragged off to meet his end without another word. The Terror stepped outside onto her terrace, and there, as if on cue, was Moroha, standing just beyond her gate. As a greeting, she immediately cast a level 13 Dark Heart spell called Curse Crusade, summoning an army of electrified soldiers born from lightning. They stormed toward Moroha with terrifying speed, but he didn't flinch. He tore through the lightning soldiers like they were nothing, using a mix of spells and pure combat skill. The Terror was visibly surprised, and one of her guards muttered, "He fights like someone used to taking on armies by himself." Realizing she'd underestimated him, the Terror decided to raise the stakes. She gave the signal and unleashed her elite saviors. Moroha quickly realized that the saviors attacking him were the same ones Kedia had mentioned, the captives under the Terror's control. Though they struck with deadly force, Moroha easily dodged their blows. In the chaos, one of them was suddenly struck by one of the remaining lightning lances. Without thinking, Moroha stepped in and saved him. Watching him shield someone who had just tried to kill him, the captive saviors began to understand what Kedia had told them: this man truly refused to kill, no matter what. Just then, a crushing weight pressed down on Moroha. One of the saviors was using a gravity restraint spell, locking him in place while the others prepared to finish him off. Before they could strike, Angela burst in and blasted the attackers away. Kedia was with her too, somehow making it there much faster than expected. Moroha opened his mouth to speak, but more arrivals cut him off. a glowing portal formed, and out stepped Shizuno and Satsuki, transported by Mary herself. Moments later, Alina arrived as well. She immediately tried talking the saviors down, pleading with them to stop fighting for someone like the Terror. Noticing Kedia struggling to get Yuri to remember her, Alina rushed over and sliced the black crystal necklace around Yuri's neck. The spell broke instantly, and Yuri snapped back to her senses. With Yuri on their side, they joined forces to take down the remaining lightning soldiers. The tide began to shift, and the Terror, watching from above, grew desperate. Refusing to back down, she summoned a massive lightning giant using another high-tier spell. Everyone launched a barrage of attacks, Shizuno, Kedia, and Moroha all combining their magic, but the giant held its ground. The creature formed a massive orb of electricity and hurled it toward them. They narrowly dodged, but as it prepared a second attack, something stirred in Moroha. Another memory surfaced, clearer than ever before. Without hesitation, he began chanting. Shizuno's eyes widened. That's a level 13 Gerard spell. Moroha finished the incantation, and suddenly, the entire battlefield was flooded with water. He calmly stepped forward, tapped his foot twice, and the water surged upward like living tentacles, wrapping around the lightning giant. The creature was crushed and obliterated in an instant. The Terror, now cornered, cast her ultimate Thunderbolt Dragon spell in a last-ditch effort. Moroha sliced it apart with a single swing. Realizing she had lost, the Terror dropped to her knees and begged for mercy. "Please, I don't want to lose everything I built. My empire." Moroha turned his back on her and said coldly, "If you didn't want your things taken, you shouldn't have stolen from others." With that, he walked away. Later, Angela scolded him for the sheer destruction his spell had caused. Apparently, the map of Russia had to be redrawn after the incident. "Sorry about that," he said sheepishly. As he looked around, he suddenly realized he was in the same sauna as all the girls. Angela rolled her eyes. "You really are clueless about other cultures." Kedia tried to calm things down but casually let slip that she and Moroha had once been naked together during the healing spell incident. The room went dead silent. Shizuno demanded an explanation, and after Kedia told the full story, both Satsuki and Alina immediately got into it. "I'm clearly the better sister." To settle it, they decided to see who could stay in the sauna the longest. They tossed water onto the heated coals, cranking the temperature up. Yuri and Kedia tapped out first, followed by Angela, who had zero patience for their nonsense. That left Moroha, Shizuno, and the two bickering sisters who had now started doing jumping jacks and stretches, trying to prove their stamina. Eventually, the contest turned into an arm wrestling match, and Satsuki barely managed to win. But then, the heat got to Alina, she passed out. Satsuki wasn't far behind. Rolling her eyes, Shizuno cast a freeze spell to wake them both up, leaving them shivering and miserable with full-on colds. Later, the group warmed up around a fire while Moroha and Shizuno sat outside, talking. He confessed that things had been strangely quiet when it was just him and Angela. But now, with the chaos of his crazy girls around again, it actually felt comforting. He also shared a dream he had during the conflict, one that felt too real. In the dream, something kept stealing the people he loved. Shizuno gave it some thought. "That might not be a memory," she said. "Could be a vision, maybe even a warning." That answer didn't give Moroha much comfort. If anything, it made him even more uneasy. At Japan HQ, Sir Edward and Andu were discussing Moroha's recent victory over the Russian Terror when Andu suddenly doubled over in pain. Gritting his teeth, he muttered, "A metaphysical. It's here." Meanwhile, back near the transport gate, Moroha and the girls had just finished saying goodbye to Kedia and Yuri. They were about to return home using Mary's teleportation spell when Moroha's phone suddenly rang. Without saying a word, he stepped away to answer. Back at the academy, the girls arrived alone. A sad Meyer asked why Moroha wasn't with them. Satsuki, trying to keep her voice steady, explained, "Right before we left, a metaphysical appeared, and since Moroha defeated the only person strong enough to stop it, he stayed behind to help." Later, on the rooftop, Satsuki found Maya sitting quietly, staring into the sky. Trying to cheer her up, she gently nudged her shoulder. Maya admitted, "Ever since Moroha left, I've felt empty. I cry myself to sleep almost every night." Satsuki offered her a soft smile. "You can sleep in my room tonight if you want. I might not be the best stand-in, but I'll be there." Elsewhere, Angela was on the phone with Sir Edward. He gave her an update on Andu's condition, revealing that despite Moroha defeating the metaphysical, Andu had collapsed and was now hospitalized. He warned her to stay at the academy in case anything else happened. That night, as promised, Maya arrived at Satsuki's room. They were just getting settled when there was a knock on the door. Satsuki opened it to find Momo standing there. "I figured I'd come keep Maya company too," she said with a soft smile. A second knock, Shizuno entered next, declaring that while she usually enjoyed luxury, she had no problem experiencing poverty for one night. One by one, more of their classmates showed up until the room was full. Everyone had come to help cheer Maya up. The impromptu sleepover began. After everyone had fallen asleep, Maya and Satsuki lay awake under the covers. Maya whispered, "I don't feel lonely anymore." Just as Satsuki smiled, she suddenly shivered. When Maya asked if something was wrong, she shook her head and said it was nothing. Back at HQ, Andu finally woke up and whispered to his assistant, "An ancient dragon is coming." Moments later, a rift tore open the sky. From the portal emerged a massive dragon, raining destruction on the city below. Emergency evacuation orders were issued as the strikers suited up and prepared to engage. Jin informed everyone that Andu was still unconscious and couldn't fight. Sir Edward was en route, and the principal was already working to activate the teleportation spell to bring Moroha back. Angela also suited up, ready to join the battle. Their plan was to ambush the dragon in the forest surrounding the school. Everyone took their positions, waiting in silence. But as it approached, Shizuno noticed the creature's eerie grin. "It knows we're here," she warned. "Scatter now." The dragon soared into the clouds and returned seconds later, unleashing a blazing inferno that scorched the forest. The students were forced to retreat from the flames. Momo and Satsuki ran side by side, but the dragon focused its attention on Satsuki. They picked up speed, but Satsuki tripped. As the beast closed in on her, Kanzaki suddenly appeared, blasting it with a powerful spell. She shouted at the kuromas to launch everything they had. Spells rained down on the dragon, but it absorbed them effortlessly and used them against them. The group took cover. In Russia, Moroha could only watch through satellite feeds. His heart sank as he recognized the dragon. It was the one from his dreams, the same one that had stolen the people he loved in countless past lives. The saviors continued their assault, but the dragon kept pushing back. Meanwhile, Mary began chanting the spell to activate the transport gate and bring Moroha home. Jin managed to leap onto the dragon's back and attempted to stab it, but the creature crashed through a building, knocking him off. As the dragon circled back, it aimed a blast at Jin, but Kanzaki jumped in with a shield spell to protect him. The dragon conjured a massive fireball and hurled it their way. Jin grabbed Kanzaki, and they dodged just in time. Satsuki screamed their names, drawing the dragon's attention again. It targeted her and launched another wave of fireballs. Momo sprinted toward her but was struck mid-run. Back at the ritual site, Mary was almost done with the chant, until she noticed a flaming building about to collapse on Maya. Without hesitation, she pushed Maya out of the way, getting injured in the process. Lying on the ground, she looked up and whispered, "Restart the chant. Bring him back." As Maya began chanting in her place, the dragon spotted her and charged. But before it could strike, Sir Edward appeared and blocked the attack, holding it off with a powerful counterspell. Maya completed the chant, finally opening the portal. From the swirling light stepped Moroha, alongside Kedia and Yuri, ready to turn the tide. As soon as Moroha arrived, Angela sensed something was wrong. "This isn't just any metaphysical," she said. Shizuno agreed. It wasn't attacking with full force. It was stalling, waiting for something. Meanwhile, Satsuki tried to draw the dragon away from a downed Alina. Just as it fired a blast, someone deflected it. She turned to see Moroha walking toward her. Jin called for backup, but Moroha stopped them. "This is my fight." He charged at the dragon, unleashing a Black Gina spell, but it was useless. Shizuno shouted that magic wouldn't work. Switching tactics, Moroha boosted his raw prana and attacked again. The dragon countered with a sonic wave, knocking him down. It then unleashed a swarm of parasitic bugs like the ones from the Fortress class. Jin realized this monster had the powers of every metaphysical Moroha had defeated. As Moroha fought them off, the dragon flew into the clouds, only to reappear behind Shizuno and Satsuki. They turned just as it petrified them both. Moroha screamed, pain flooding his memories. In every past life, they had been taken from him. Now, again, overwhelmed by rage, his prana surged. Sir Edward whispered, "He's fallen into despair, Pandora's box." Dark energy exploded from him, wiping out the swarm. Grabbing his sword, he leapt onto the dragon's back, carving magic letters into its body to prevent it from nullifying his spell. Angela yelled at him to stop, warning the city could be destroyed. Alina said it was no use, he couldn't hear anything anymore. Meanwhile, inside their petrified state, Shizuno and Satsuki saw visions of their former selves urging them to wake up, just like Moroha always did for them. At the final moment, just before unleashing the spell, Moroha saw a vision of Seija and the Netherworld sorceress. They took his hand and said, "We're always with you." "I remember," he whispered, and began to transform. Meanwhile, Alina realized Moroha was embodying two past lives at once. As he began chanting his final spell, the strikers, now healed by Kame, rallied and cleared the battlefield of the remaining bugs to give him a clear shot. When Angela saw the dragon preparing a counter spell, she threw a dagger, striking it in the eye and throwing it off. With the path clear, Moroha finished chanting, channeled the spell into his sword, and brought it down with full force, completely obliterating the dragon. At that exact moment, Andu finally woke up. Later, Moroha, Shizuno, and Satsuki accompanied Sir Edward and Angela to the airport. Before leaving, Edward warned Moroha to keep an eye on the French chief. While Shizuno went to fetch the car, Moroha asked Satsuki if she remembered helping him in the battle. She shook her head, saying all she remembered was dreaming about their past life. As they walked, Moroha mentioned seeing the Netherworld sorceress when he lost control. When he hinted that it might have been her, Satsuki quickly stopped him. "That's our secret," she whispered. Just as they were about to kiss, Satsuki suddenly turned and ran ahead. After everything, they returned to the academy, bruised, tired, but victorious. Surrounded by their friends, they held a celebration in honor of their hard-fought win. Laughter filled the air, the tension of battle finally lifting as they enjoyed a moment of peace together. That's it for today's video, guys. Tell me in the comments, do you like Satsuki or Alina, and I will see you in the next one.